destroy humanity. I come from the future. It was a long way. You remember the first slide the man with a funny head showed you yesterday? I came on the Enterprise, and you see it matches my shoes as well, to tell you, dear mortals, how your life can be so much better and longer, as some of my friends here already know. And I think I have a clicker. And as the man with the funny head believes, still, if we only would do it decentralized, and if only we would have listened to some wise men from before us who had concern for man and himself, and his fate must always constitute the chief objective of our technological endeavors. And I think the man with the funny head has the same concern, and he has concern for women as well. How about that? Because as my previous speaker, who I think he also comes at least a bit from the future, was saying, of course, decentralization is much more effective in many, many, many ways. It can be positive, or it can be negative. And of course, in another life, I worked with the Department of Defense, and I know how effective is decentralization when it comes to terrorism, and how ineffective are the centralized organizations in fighting that. So, as the previous speaker mentioned, well, I put it like it's all in the hands of the incentives. So decentralization can work for us. We could trade solar power. We could be incentivized. The AIs can help us do that much more effective. But also, the same AIs can pit us against each other and against our neighbors and play, as you can see here, perverse games with perverse incentives. And unfortunately, our world today, and I'm happy I do not have too much time because I don't want to stay too long here on Earth today. I want to go back to the future. But our world today is driven by a game of perverse incentives, which AGI can play so much better than us. Anyway, yeah, so this is one example, right? So if it has less calories, let's eat more. Well, how about if the energy costs less, and it is done from fossil fuels? Oh, why should I switch off my lights? Why shouldn't I consume more, as long as I have to pay the same amount? But what does that do to our planet? So this is called the Jevons paradox. Anyway, many of our governments and the big guys, the centralized institutions, are playing us like that, with slogans like, you got to understand, the destruction of the planet may be the price we have to pay for a healthy economy, as our friend before was mentioning. So this is what Moloch is, which Tufi mentioned yesterday. It acts on society with this invisible hand as and makes out of society a superorganism that keeps humanity in the current power structures, driven by an incentive control engine oriented on a path to kill its host, as well as its future. And here are some Moloch incentives, if you do not know them already. Yes. So optimization in social media for user engagement over quality content, fee-for-service models encouraging unnecessary treatment for healthcare, and so on and so forth. Corporate short-termism, you name it. Electoral incentives focusing on short-term gains. So it is the human factor that is somehow one, not all, and I will mention more, of the weakest links here. Because we can be played far too easily, and we are. We are a commodity for advertisers and food for the cannibalistic industrial complex because of these incentives. And I must say, I, in another life, was a victim as well of this tyranny of likes and retweets. I was very hurt when my posts weren't liked. But anyway, let's see what we have to do. So again with Moloch, yes, so Moloch it symbolizes, and my friend from Israel just came here. I was there before the disaster happened here on Earth. And I visited the Moloch Valley, where people were throwing their children as sacrifice to a power that would give them immediate return. So they were literally sacrificing their future for more cars, more houses, as Tufi mentioned yesterday. Is this what we really want? Is it worth it? So Moloch acts decentralized through a nebulous collective of bad incentives that are fueling it. And I don't need to explain this slide, thanks God, because my friend explained it very well. The logic of markets, science and technology progress. Okay, let's sell that, but who cares how many people are going to die because of the particular vaccine, and so on and so forth. So, and of course, the government are doing rules. Don't ever sell that to the bad people. Well, who are they? I think they are the bad people. In this month, another wise man who is called Ian McGilchrist, and he gave the Darwin lecture at Cambridge University. He stated that his worry is not that machines will become like people, which actually the man with the funny hat is embarked to build, together with all of us here, but people became like machines in this incentive engine. So we are sacrificing our freedom in the chains of bureaucracies. In his book, Life 3.0, and yesterday it was talked about Prometheus AI, Max Tegmark showed very nicely as how we are, of course, the AGIs are the new gods, but how we can easily go under tyranny. I'm not going to go through this. But just as I was embarking the enterprise to arrive here, Jan LeCun posted that the Ukraine conflict has made it obvious that the application of AI in defense is necessary for the preservation of democracies against hostile adversaries. So you see how it's being played. And just earlier this month, the CEO of Palantir gave a talk at the World Government Summit in which he talked. I was terrified. I received it through radio waves. And he was saying that there will be winners and losers in the world of artificial intelligence. And guess what winners mean? Here we are. However, yes, there is good in the world. There is the power of decentralization here, but let's see if we can steer it with the right incentives. So how do we change the game? That is the question, right? How do we move from a game of economic incentives in which we are oppressing our fellow humans and nature, and we see them as commodities, to a game of relationships, based maybe on a treaty model, as my friend Indy Johar from the Dark Matter Labs in London is working on. Oh, but we know how to do that. Otto Scharmer from MIT, in his Theory U book, he showed that we can move from resources as a commodity to ecosystems, from money as speculative, extractive, exclusive to intentional, inclusive, from in technology as well, from monopoly power abuse to empowering accountable participation. And here I come to my second weak link. But would we want to do that? You see, the AGI is like the genie getting out of this lamp, and we can ask it anything we want. What would we ask for? Would we ask for more homes, Tufi? For more cars? Would we ask for more power? For the penthouse at the Hilton? Well, or anyone here really, really, really looking in their heart would ask for wisdom? Can you raise your hands? Okay. I will see. I'll check with you later. I will return from the future. So it's very important who wishes, right? And of course, some wise men were thinking about this as well. Yes, it's a game of the wisdom that we are actually losing against the universe, against nature. So let's see. Who knows what is this? Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's the gate at the oracle at Delphi. Who knows what is written on it? Tell me. I will buy you whatever you want in terms of drinks tonight. Okay, yes, that's what it is written. So it is ancient wisdom. It's nothing, yeah, but do we really know ourselves? Did we really check with our wishes? So, again, the wise man, which I quoted in the beginning, said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. And the rational mind is a useful servant. It's very useful. However, we have completely denied the intuitive mind to the service and the servitude of the rational mind. We created a society that honors the servant. And in McGilchrist, which I know many maybe don't like, in his Master and its Emissary masterpiece, he showed that actually, the reductionist thinking is what works against us, and maybe we can tap into the holistic thinking that, the problem is that it is the unseen, those relationships, you cannot see them, but neither could Einstein prove the speed of light. So we have to tap into our imaginal in order to get there. So he said in the Darwin lecture this month, well, it's time to freeze a bird. To tap also, to learn to tap into our intuitive mind. And look what's happening when we don't. So we only see the map, we don't really see the territory. And all the decisions are coming from that reductionist thing. What's in it for me? And why? And will I get a bonus if Palantir gets richer? And so on and so forth. And this is responsible for a complete failure to understand what the world is, what the human being is in the real world. Well, and the power-thirsty bureaucracies are playing on that with rules that reflect a dysfunctional view of the world. That's the result. We live in it. Or you. I'm going back. So innovation gets caught in the web of rules, mainly nonsensical rules. So let's see how we can freeze this bird. One really, really, really weak link. This slide can be summarized as the arms race. This is really a big problem from the situation in which we are finding ourselves now. Because everybody will have to change. Everybody will have. You see, there were only a few hands in the room. But if not everybody changes, then we cannot do it. So that is really, really, in our quest for the new rules, this will be the weakest link. And I think we should really join forces and see how we can solve this problem, if ever. So if we can look, there's some work done which I really like a lot. And there's a lot of work which is going in this direction. So if we humans are the solution to an optimization of an evolutionary function, then we could ask on the evolutionary scale, as Ben showed, what is the next step? And let's call it the singularity. However, we want it beneficial. And you can see that, yes? So in the evolutionary transitions, we move from biochemistry to biology, to minded animals, to culture, technology, and then the singularity. And so if we want a beneficial singularity, I posit that culture is the weakest link. And how do we change the culture? Again, this is from Indy Johar, and I'm going to sum it up very quickly. So we have to move from looking at ourselves as separate, adversarial, disconnected individual, which allows violence towards the other and the world around us, to entangled being. As Anders was saying, yes, moral communities, how do we tap into that? It is in us, that kind of wisdom is in us. So we can move from the performative incentives to drive engagement, to setting incentives rewards that entice us to maximize our cognitive capacity, like Ben is doing. Interconnectedness across ideological divides, like this meeting is showing, and with other beings, and align our values with nature, well, and if I may, citing my friend Annelus, with the universe. But you see, for that, the difficulty and another weak link is that we have to tap into the imaginal. it's not really, yeah, I cannot touch it. It is imaginal, and this is a very nice book. And again, Otto Scharmer recently said that attention is a moral act, because attention is aligned with intention, which is a superpower, because it moves us in the right direction. This is a very interesting book about tapping into the imaginal and try to see what happens if you treat everything around you, not only other human beings, with as sacred, right? and maybe easier, yes, just what happens when we let the golden rule to guide us, to shift our thinking and behavior. So here is, of course, other luminaries have thought of this, and John Muir is also one of my heroes. In his essay, Earth, Planet, Universe, he famously said that when we pull on one thing, we find it, and it is connected to everything else, although we don't see that, right? Anne-Luce is going to talk about that, and I please join her. She was dubbed the female Einstein by Jane Houston, by the way, Anne-Luce Smithman, who is here with us, and she will tell us about the AGI constitution and actually how can we tap into our superpower. She's an expert on that. She has those capacities. But let's see how can we now here on Earth do this. How can we reevaluate things? To move from this reductionist, and let's see what reductionist thinking is and how holistic it is, like concretely. When we talk about using, from, you know, we give a house to the inhabitant, but we can also look at it as a whole, holistically, housing equality, collective intelligence of the city. And we can do that, the conscious city, which SingularityNET is working on. From social value, for example, from resident to neighbors. Yeah, I have some neighbors and I would have to recycle and so on, and if he doesn't recycle, I'm going to tell him to the city and so on and so forth. To a sense of community, a culture of place where we are all in it together, and so on and so forth. You can see it here. So there are a lot of things which we can do in this shift from agent to emergent value from complex systems of relationships. And relationship is the keyword here. Our values, of course, we have invented our own values. I mean, humanity has invented their own values. However, they departed from alignment with nature. So the alignment problem is not only alignment with humanity, because we do not know what humanity wants. We do not know what we want, if we want power or if we want wisdom. So we can start to think about a relational economy in which it is a care economy guided by social and relational interactions, not only by financial transactions. John Doyle, whose work I followed for many years from Caltech, he is seeking the universal laws and architecture and systemic fragilities in biological, medical, neuro, and cyber physical systems. And he is positing, very interesting, because I've seen his work evolving. So initially he was looking at cybersecurity and comparing it with biological networks and try to develop some, I would call them maybe barriers to attacks. But now he's shifting even higher. He says, he posits scientifically that our values have to mirror the laws of nature and of the universe. And they actually do. If we don't follow those laws, which are complexity, and we continue with this power structure centralized, we're going to fail. This is Yanir Bar-Yam work, which is old work on complexity science. Yes, he was also, I mean, he built his own religion at his institute, but I'm all for that. So just one slide here, just to illustrate that actually we do not need the planning which Anders was talking about, because complex adaptive systems do not need a central controller. Everything can emerge from hierarchical organization. And nature has taught us that. Michael Levin is doing some very, very amazing work at Tufts University. This is a paper called Technological Approach to Mind Everywhere, in which he shows that actually wisdom, I would call it, he calls it biological cognition, is embodied in the evolution itself, and that we can look to build things which have that wisdom in them. But I think first we have to look to exploit, you see, again, I come from Moloch. Sorry, I'm going to take some courses when I go back to the enterprise. So we have to learn to use and to tap into that capability, that wisdom, which we are innate with. So how would a society driven by wisdom be like? And what are the new rules and incentives? Of course, we all want to know. But okay, who should set the incentives? Do you think governments, or maybe Palantir, or even the collective driven by the likes and retweets? Do you think they would set the right incentives? I don't know. So here is a call for everyone to tap into their holistic superpower. And the role of decentralization is to engage the collective wisdom, humans and AGIs, to find the incentives for a game that will increase the quality of life on Gaia. Because AGI can help us much more to get the wisdom rules versus the man-made rules in which all the institutions are ruled for the benefit of those who rule them. One more. And of course, we have in blockchain, you know, on where I come from, time has a different dimension, but okay, I will do my best to actually give the final message. So of course, with provable social contracts, with blockchain and technologies, we can stop evil. However, we can do a bit more. So here is an example. Here are some examples of collective flourishing incentives with which I will leave you. So, for example, in the economic systems, we can give credits through volunteering and exchangeable for public benefits. We can reward for quality content versus, you know, another kind of user engagement. And in healthcare, we can reduce the health insurance premiums based on, of course, if people are taking wellness programs and so on and so forth. So here is my last slide, because they are stopping me, and I am very happy I put it here. I have a lot more to say. Which are the main questions? And actually, this is a call for the unconference if you want to join me, and I assume Annaluz as well in the unconference. I'd like to explore these questions. How do we reconstitute ourselves in harmony with life? Like, for example, reestablishing a sense of who we are. How do we cultivate wisdom? Because values are universals, and really understand that, derived from the structure of being versus from our rational mind, limited mind. Relationship precedes being. That's another one, and of course I have a lot to say here. What rules and laws make sense and lead to coherence in that new world, aligned with nature and the universe? How do we seduce people to embrace their sacred gift? Just like the tweets and retweets and the likes are seducing us into the Moloch trap. When here is, consciousness is a property of the cosmos. Try to wrap your head around that. How do we build the capacity to coordinate with fellow gamers, the cultivation of wisdom, to switch them from focusing on having to focusing on being? Again, attention is a moral act. And the last one is, what might a new game where wisdom increase meaningfulness and coherence with others look like? Where motivation is not in purifying the ocean and the air, but stems from a desire to embrace their beauty and sacredness. Play by the principles. And I have some principles, but I think this is what we are here for, to do more.